For the second part of our video, we have welcome back our friend Bob that Builder, which will tell us what has changed with the new patch with Lizardmen. Because we
So,
had a recent adjustment for a lot of stuff that has unfortunately done some damage to my dwarves, but I won't talk about that. What has changed for Lizardmen in the new patch, Bob?
so Lizards pretty much got buffs across some niche units that they haven't really been able to field in previous patches. The biggest one are the T-Rex buffs, the Carnosaurs. All of them got an increase of HP, generally around 400 for the base one, a little bit more for the mounted Old Blood. And then the Source Scarvet also got an increase on melee attack. And this is a hidden change, not in the notes. They gave him Colossal Strike. And Colossal Strike is easily the best part of his kit now when it comes to like the buffs that he got and what he can do. Because now on a Carno plus Colossal Strike or on a Cold One plus Colossal Strike, you can really go in and goon a Lord or another SE super well. Another buff is to my favorite unit, the Chameleon Stalkers. They got a increase in their melee attack +4. It's not really going to change too much about them, other than they're going to be a little bit more stat efficient when diving. Uh, they're a good unit. Honestly, if you have a plan, they're great. They still get absolutely trampled by any cav, but if they can dive in on artillery or archers, they'll do great. The POC cohort Spear Riders, the ROR got Devastating Flanker.
Wait, let me find
It's
it. Where
fine.
is it? Where is it?
It,
It's here around here somewhere. This one. There we go.
yeah, there you go. It got a devastating flanker. It's fine. It's an alright unit overall. It still kind of straddles the line of like, is this +300 is kind of expensive. A lot of times I found that I have an extra 300 gold in my reinforcement army because lizard prices can be a pain in the ass. So it's definitely a good-ish unit now. I would say niche. And if you're getting dived on and you have a Vanguard flank and you can summon them instantly, that's I guess where their power shines. So
So,
last thing, the
yeah.
Troglodon got and the Skink Oracle both got 400 health increases. Nothing
Well,
major.
yeah. So basically, nothing changed in their playstyle. Just a couple of niche things have become a little bit better, basically.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is the Sora Scarvet on his Carno or on his Cold One mount. Both of them are now just a little bit better, so the game of protecting the Slaan got a little bit easier. Uh, I tried spamming this Sora Scarvet on the Carnosaur in a tournament, and it still is not amazing versus everything. You gotta babysit it really hard, but it's definitely like, okay, I went from never using this hero to I'll probably use this hero in, you know, 20 to 40% of the matchups.
Yeah, I've been seeing it quite a bit when I play Chaos Dwarfs as like a train hunter kind of thing. Well, not hunter,
Yeah,
but like it helps, I guess. There's nothing else that helps. So yes, this kind of veteran uh, can
that,
really do
for
surprising amount
like
of
at the
damage.
price, it's exactly for the price and its size. It's really good at hunting down SEs that aren't like also dedicated duelists. So it will probably will lose to most other like kind of duelist heroes, but like as far as like train hunting or really just going after stuff that Lizardmen can kind of struggle with, it's great.
We shall now go through a replay to see if the stuff that we have learned in our videos is makes sense. So this is a game you played, Bob,
Yes.
with the
So
against Dark Elves. I'm gonna try and
yes.
make some assumptions based on what Shaftsbury and you taught me about the race, but do you know correct me and stuff. So how does Lizardmen versus Dark Elves usually go?
So this is actually a very Dark Elf favored matchup, and it kind of you'll see why uh, just when the armies kind of load in that the Dark Elves have a number of options that naturally counter a lot of the Lizardmen. Scourge Runner Chariots being one of them, just a good unit. But what I This is from a single faction tournament that happened just the other day, past the latest patch.
Okay, so
So it
this
has
is
all
the
the
newest
new
version
inclusions.
of
Yes.
okay.
And so I've done this matchup a bunch of times, and what like the biggest things I wanted to show off are like the synergies that the Lizardmen units have together, because the Skinks are one of the best light units in the game, but they can just get run over by any amount of mass. And then pretty much all of the dinosaurs that are past a certain price point that the lizards have terror and have the ability to kind of go fisticuffs. You'll see the ancient salamander, which is primarily a artillery monster, is actually really good whenever you want it to dive in and kind of counter scourge runner chariots or counter anything that has mass that would normally just absolutely demolish your skinks.
Because I was about to say, like this feels like the double salamander seems like an excellent idea versus the expensive and packed dark elves infantry, but they seem to be very vulnerable to the scourge runners.
Yes.
At least from what I can sort of say at a glance. So the skirmish phase of the game will likely be which of these two units, either the chariots or the salamander, can sort of best impose its will into the game.
Yes.
Why did you take high magic? Like I wouldn't. I would have thought something like fire or I mean death maybe even would be better here. Why high magic? I know Shaftsbury likes
Yeah.
tempest and stuff like that, but what did you
Tempest is
take?
the reason. I've
Tempest.
found with pretty much most of the Elven matchups, there's a really high chance of seeing a Flying Lord, and Dark Elves, especially with Marathi being a super squishy Flying Lord, she could just absolutely run the field if you let her. So I like High Magic as just a way to counter. Tempest is absolutely useless in this match. You'll see,
Yeah, because
because they didn't have anything that's flying. So you just have Apotheosis as your. I'm gonna pretty much spam that heal every single time it's on cooldown because it's a very cheap heal, and it's just good that a bunch of lizard units have tons of HP. So it's good to just constantly kind of top off their HP a bit.
it seems like you really don't respect the Dark Elf infantry that much, which makes sense. Like you
Yeah,
have
with the
these
build,
two red crested, but all of this rest of the stuff seems to be like cap points and kill light cav. Is that the thing? Is that correct?
yes.
Okay.
So I need in this matchup the Ancient Sallies to really carry, doing as much damage to the infantry before I get the main engagement going on. And you'll see my micro is not perfect. There's a couple times I let them get mass infantry on like my spears, and you'll really see that like most Lizardmen infantry trade pretty poorly with Dark Elf infantry. So there's no real reason to like try and field an equal melee engagement, in my opinion.
Well, let's begin and see what happens. So you deployed mostly on the forest, on sort of inside the forest for stealth purposes, or does this help with the counterfire from the scourge runners, or both, or neither?
Stealth.
Okay.
I was trying to get him as push far forward as possible before I revealed either my lord or the ancient Sally, so that I can just go in and do as much damage as possible. Because what if you could see the ancient Sallies right off the get go, then he could just move the scourge runners and keep his infantry back.
I was talking with Shaftsbury before about the sort of the different type of skin skirmish. So you have chosen quadruple javelin here instead of the blowpipe guys. Is this for a particular reason? Is it another concession to the Dark Elf cavalry that because of these guys do more damage to it?
I love the Javs because of how much damage they can do in a really short period. The other ones are much more like traditional skirmish where they have to get at least half of their ammo off to really, put a dent into some units. Whereas like you get two javelin throws off with the cohort and you can pretty much half health light cav, or what you'll see right now is I'm trying to use them as a skirmish to the scourge runners, and you'll see the pros and cons in a second. But this is kind of where, as a Lizard player, I summon in the Feral Cold ones. You have to match your units with a little bit of mass if you're having a super wide Skink army, because Skinks have super low mass. I think they have some of the lowest mass in the game, so they can just get run through by just about everything.
So now the game plan, I guess, is to use as much of the ammo of the salamanders while using this core here to keep the scourge runners away from your
Yep,
salamanders.
exactly. Start pushing up with this, and then right off the get-go, you see how much damage
Yeah.
they can do with a single volley. It's beautiful.
Wow, that's... Yeah, this is what I was kind of afraid of. Like, I don't understand how you stop the scourge runners unless they throw themselves at you. Is there...
You kind of just have to eat it is the unfortunate thing. And like you'll see they rampage my ferals right to some spears. So like my gambit kind of failed, but then I have a second feral that's going off. The start of this game I would definitely say is kind of a bit in favor positionally of my opponent. I have the value advantage, but he's going to have all of the stat advantages.
So, with Shaftsbury, he told me basically that feral cold ones are used mostly as something like a support piece. Because they're kind of fast, if I don't remember. Well, I mean, they're fast, but not that fast. But they can't really do that much on their own, as far as I can understand it, because of their low
Yeah.
leadership and stuff. So,
Yeah, they're basically a dog unit that has really good AP and slightly less models.
so sending them here, is it to just kill the Dark Riders, or is it still like the effort? Like everything is about keeping the Scourge Runners away, no matter what it takes.
The Dark Raiders at the moment, I believe.
Okay.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
This toad is very sad right now. He doesn't. He
Just chilling. He has
yeah.
nothing he can throw stuff at.
Would you still go Tempest even after this game, just for the reassurance against dragons, or would you change it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's just a good... Because worst case, you just have Apotheosis, which is a fine heal. So you can see here the Scourge Runners are about to charge into my Skinks. And I switch the Ancient Sallies into melee. And this is where you can actually start to kind of counter skirmish this and use it. Is they'll still, shoot you with their bows and such, but you'll be able to kind of out-damage them price for price.
Well, the engagement on point 2 is going really, really poorly.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
this dive from your opponent might have given you, a lot more breathing room, basically, because I don't understand the purpose of the dive here, but you correctly sort of damaged the chariots when they came in.
I think
Go ahead.
if I'm imagining from my opponent, he's trying to dive in on the skirmishers, so they're not able to get their volleys off on his approaching infantry. So that's kind of what I thought his game plan was. And then you'll see, so the Dark Riders with crossbows are
Yeah.
the bane of lizards. It is probably one of the Dark Elves' best.
Yeah, they are the bane of most things.
Yeah.
Reaper Dactyl are killing everything, as they tend to do.
This is kind of, my positioning with my Slaan is not the best right here. You'll see I take a bunch of damage and kind of let his Lord get some free damage off. And that's kind of the thing with Slaans. They have a ton of HP,
Yeah.
but they're slow and very squishy, very susceptible to just being shot down. And it takes me a second. The Slaan's just chilling, getting hit by arrows before he realizes, gotta go.
So let's pause for a second and see what's happening, sort of. In
This
a
is
more
where my
macro
position
way.
too on the right side was bad. Is I had to let him engage with 2 infantry to surround a Saurus spear unit, and they basically got no value. They're just grinding away at.
That's true, but like if I am watching this game here, the main thing that is important, I would assume, are still the double salamander and scourge runner dynamic, right? So the main problem I can see here are the cold one knights, because there's nothing that can kill them aside from the rippers. Or am I missing something?
Rippers will do well into them, and if you just bog them down with little bits of chaff and such, I find that they're really good until they get swarmed by just a bunch of value that can quickly kind of burn them off because they have high DPS and relatively low melee defense.
So your plan right now is just to keep value trading, or is there something that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he seems to be really now he has found out about the slam, who was being very sneaky in the middle of the field, and will try to snipe it, which is usually a terrible, it looks great, but then it never works as you intended. Sniping the slam.
Song of the siren slam. Yeah, this is where you can kind of get the advantage, start throwing a bunch of units on top. They're still kind of bogged down. They've been poisoned by the skinks. So throwing a bunch of mass and then some ferals on them is my way of trying to clear off this.
Yes,
Malice
this is yeah. This is what I meant with the ferals. Like, ferals are like a pile-in unit. Like
exactly. And then so Malice in this matchup is pretty difficult to deal with as a Lizards, so you just kind of have to bog him down. You don't, unless you're going like a very dedicated, I don't know, like a Scarvet, double Scarvet build, there's not much that can burn him down quickly. So you can see I'm trying to pile on him, and then eventually I kind of like think, I better not. Because they're going to throw more cav through.
That being said, he does look very thin as well. Like if you, it seems like the salamanders have done their job for the most part, even if it doesn't look like it. Like the dark elf infantry is not, it's not a big presence at all in this game right now.
Yes.
So,
most of my value that I have in the advantage comes from the infantry trading. Just being able to go get a couple pot shots, switch my ancient sallies into melee mode, and then go back at it. It really, like, they have a couple one unit of dread spears, but for the most part it's just mobility. And at this point you see I kind of actually do blunder my ancient sally.
yeah,
so I'm trying to throw everything at, and then very luckily I still have a banishment on cooldown from the Slaan that just does some work right here. Defense
oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Very.
Also, that is for anyone trying to play the Lizards, just use a Slaan in a lot of matchups where you will not get shot by like artillery or cannons or sniper units, and they're going to do well. They almost always pay for their value with their banishments.
So, would you say, if I'm someone who's learning Lizardmen, I am watching this replay, I can't really, I don't want to say this. You have played in a, like the initial army was, at least to again an uninitiated person, someone focused on kite, because these guys are what, 1,000, how much do they cost, the salamanders?
1,100, I believe.
Yeah, so they're pretty expensive units, which haven't gotten their value back, but they have, well, this one did, but they did help the melee fight. Your front line basically was skirmishes, technically. But they did manage to at least hold their own against a faction with superior infantry, at least technically, if you throw them one against each other. Like, my question is it, I guess, normal? Because I play other factions that don't really have this, I think. For a Lizardman army to sort of be able to switch its roles so quickly within a match? Because you have kite at the beginning. But you also,
great question, and you're absolutely right. And a lot of Lizard kite, I guess you could say, it is almost like a hybrid kite. Like these ancient sallies are definitely better as like a kite unit, but they can still go in to melee just fine. The skink skirmishers, I wouldn't even say they are a kite unit. They're mostly just like they kind of have their precursor jav because it's not a lot, and your goal is really to just throw in all the jabs at the soft targets that you want, and then just throw them into melee with other chaff or anything else. They're not going to win any beauty contest, but it allows you to really get a lot of capture weight on the point and just muck up the field. Uh, that's kind of where you can, if you wanted to go pure dedicated lizard kite, that's where the skink skirmishers versus skinks with javelins come into play. But a lot of times you'll see lizardmen builds kind of shift into a very melee focused kind of second stage of the game because they throw all their ammo. They can use it pretty quickly. If you're doing like a Stegadon with a bow, it only has 20 shots. Same thing with the solar engine. So you can really, in a domination game especially, can run through your ammo pretty quickly, and then you have a big ass dinosaur. That's a good platform to attack in melee.
I just realized this, probably because I'm not as intelligent as I claim to be, that basically, like, skink or javelins are like less armored blasting charge miners, technically. Like they serve the same purpose, right? They have a high
Yeah.
damage um,
Yep.
sort of precursor thing that they use a couple times, which can be used against a priority target, but they still last quite a bit into melee. So yeah, describing them as skirmish units, which you would think by basing on the name and the fact they are classified as missile infantry, does them quite a bit of a disservice, I guess, because it doesn't really describe their role as quickly because they allow the lizardmen to switch between the roles super quickly, even
Yeah.
from your opponent's
No.
side. Because you think, oh, it's a skirmish game, but it's not really. It's a frontline
No.
unit that happens to have skirmish properties.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. No. Describing them as a miner with blasting charges is a good kind of way of going about it. And for the dwarf brain, instead of
Yeah, I
throwing it
mean,
into
it's
infantry, throw it into to cav.
yeah, exactly. It's I need to categorize things in a way I can understand. Sadly, I don't have an equivalent for the slan. Ah, so sad. Oh well.
Ain't nobody like the Slaan.
I mean, the physique
The
is kind of similar. Like a fat dwarf on a throne could be cool.
yeah.
Um, Now there's basically nothing to impede the slaughter by the salamanders right now, and I assume they can do decent damage to Cav as well if they have time, right?
Yeah, they do fine. They actually do decent as a anti crossbow, the Dark Rider repeater crossbows. Like they decently counter that thing. Right here in the second, we're gonna get to the second stage really where I'm starting to throw out a lot more mobility and capture weight kind of becomes my MO, and so you'll just start seeing like the rest of this game is a lot of like bouncing in between points because I'm at a point where I have to get the triple cap or else I'm gonna lose.
Which you
But
didn't
that's
really. I mean, you didn't really try to contest the points that much.
yeah,
Like you
lizards
held
are
on a lot to point one, but after the initial engagement on point two, everything was about value trading, correct?
yeah, absolutely. Lizards, in my opinion, are one of the best factions at capturing. You can't. I'd say Beastmen are slightly better at doing that Vanguard summon and reinforcing. Lizards don't have a ton of Vanguard, but like knowing that okay, he has 1,000 points. If I can get a double cap, that gives me a lot of time to summon in a bunch of skinks that generally are going to out cap per gold cost any of the infantry that the Dark Elves are going to summon later in the game.
Absolutely, yes. You also have stuff to like intercept reinforcement and like this looks pretty damn good to be honest. Like I don't really see any way for the Dark Elves to claw back into this.
Yeah, spoiler, they don't really. They do
Oh,
a good job trying to bounce back and forth between the different points, and you'll see at one point they do capture this. I kind of get a little lax on point one, uh, but it's mostly a game of trying to clean up right now, trying to make sure that I have the advantage of mobility, because that's where this Dark Elf, the anti-large cav that they have is slightly better than the Lizardmen anti-large cav. So
Are
you
the
really kind of
spear
have
riders
to.
now just it was what I had in reserve, or was it like I don't see at least I can't understand their target here. Is it just because they're fast and relatively tanky and you need stuff on the points?
Yeah, that was. I don't think I had too much else that I
Okay.
could summon that would have been useful. I have like in reserve. I have a Razordon hunting pack that would have just gotten ran over. Not sure what else. I limped that charge. What I should have done is kept them around the corner of the cap.
Really nice shot, by
Trying to
the
get a
way.
bunch of capture
He
rate.
clamps the
Yeah,
Corsair, and this really sums up. Like, they're basically tankier flamers of these, right? Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
nice. Oh, suddenly a lot of cav. Okay, I should have maybe foreseen this. This
So
makes
there
your
you can
spear
see.
riders better.
You'll see like each shot of the Ancient Sally into the crossbow cav will do about 3 to 4 models it picks off if it hits. So it's decently reliable at like taking down a couple of them.
So also, does it like synergize with itself because of the
Yeah,
flammable? So the first shot deals less damage than the others because it becomes vulnerable. That's
yeah.
cool.
Lizards actually can go one of the strongest like pure fire builds if you want to like mess around with stuff with the Fire Slaan and Solar Engine and Ancient Sally. You can do a lot of fun stuff.
Ah, I can
There's
see you have
red
learned
vested.
the ways of the Sternguard, the miner in the corner of a map, late game.
He just needs a little break.
Yeah,
He's on
just
rest duty.
yeah, it's fine. Um, and then let's see what happens. Um,
Here, my opponent kind of realizes, there's not a chance I can get point one because I just have so many skinks stacked on top of feral cold ones and cold ones spear riders. So he's going to go for point two. Does a good job trying to get that one ancient salamander that has pretty low health. You'll see him. He pops off in his routing right now. But they've received a bunch of healing. It's not flashy, but the apotheosis has gone off on the ancient sallies pretty consistently throughout the game, and it helps them really survive because they're a good monster with terror and have decent melee stats, but they're kind of still squishy at the end of the day.
yeah, so basically this now shows what we talked about in the roster review, which is the fact that skinks are really hard to get through and are point by point like one of the best holding units, like point holding units in the game, just because they have so much HP.
Yep,
So
and
unless
you'll
you
see
can
these
burst them
skinks
down.
just whittling down everything that comes in on them.
Yeah, the javelins do respectable damage indeed. And basically your your idea right now is just to hold on to the triple cap as much as you can, correct?
Yep, that's as long as I can kind of get it down to a double cap situation, which I think it's
Yeah, I
almost
was
there.
about to say, I think it's already a double cap, right? Because it's like 500 to 1000. So if it's not right now, in a couple of
Yeah,
seconds it
just a
should
little
be.
bit more. Yeah.
Uh, which, yeah, is never gonna cap 2 points right now, right?
No.
Unless something. The problem with Soros that we've talked about before with Shaftsbury is, as far as I understand, that they don't kill anything. Like they're very tanky, but they never kill stuff because they're very
They're like
low on A.
well, the ones with the maces never kill anything and kind of just hold. The ones with the spears are actually pretty good against large units. Like I forget what their bonus is, 10 or 15. Let me double check. They have a bonus versus large of
16,
16. So yeah, so
which
they're
isn't
pretty
bad.
good at like
Yeah.
no, yeah. You'll see right here they do a really good job kind of fending off all of this light cav. But I think the mace ones, ever since the nerf that they received to Primal Instincts, I think they are kind of mediocre at this point. They just have a ton of HP and a ton of stats, so they're a holding unit For the dwarf brain, kind of like a long beard, maybe a little bit worse. I feel like long beards aren't used very often though.
No, they're not. At least Longbeards have the advantage of buffing other units' leadership, while Soros don't. In fact, I was about to say, like, it seems like with the new like synergy between Skinks and Croxigore buff, you know, that was a while ago added. Soros just don't really seem to have a place other than, I guess, anti-cav with the spears.
Yeah. There are some people that like to do like you can do like a life slan and healing build and bring Massasaurus and just have, you know, the stat check build. That can work against like certain ranged factions. I think some people even like it against lizard or not lizards, the Skaven. But for the most part, I'd say like for if you're an aspiring lizard player, you want a ratio of like at least three skinks to every one source that you bring. The red-crested skinks are probably one of the better units that got buffed a couple patches ago. Immune to contact effects, really
Yeah,
punchy.
I hate them severely.
Yeah.
They are. In fact, I was about to ask, why is there no one of my most hated units in the game, the cohort of Sotek? Why are those bastards not around here?
Oh, they got brought.
Oh, they got brought?
They,
I never saw them. Where are they?
Yeah, I think they fought Malice at one point, and they died to the man. But they're useful in just about every matchup. Such a good unit.
I think the second, so the first part of the game, we saw basically how, I think, okay, this is a wild take. Tell me if it's stupid. This game really shows off the resilience of Lizardmen more than any other aspect of them. Because you had a starting build that was focused on two mobile kind of artillery pieces, which were allowed to do everything they wanted, even though the opponent tried to shut them down, because of just how much sheer hit points the rest of your army had. Between the Soros and the Skinks, it was, as you can see now, we're at a firm triple cap, and this might get taken over, but not by much. Like, the Spear Riders are more than decent anti-large fighters, so this will get taken back if these guys reach it here. And the thing that has impressed me in this game is just how many arrows the Dark Elf shot into you, and it just doesn't matter, you know?
Yep. Yeah, no, that's with a little bit of healing, with just your absolute incredible mass and cost-efficient skinks that you can just throw at stuff. You really kind of have that advantage of just like, all right, I can have slightly more bodies than you have. I can throw more HP at a point than you can get, and you know, you're not going to be able to win against Dark Elves in the range department. Like, you know, infantry ranged, your skinks will not do well if they bring like a line of dark shards with, you know, shields. But the big thing is that your lizards will slightly outpace most factions into the late game. Norska can beat them into the late game because of the rage mechanic. Maybe Nurgle can with all the healing, but lizards are probably one of the most resilient factions. I think that was a good way of putting it.
So if he had brought dark shards, let's think about this, because basically what is happening right now is just what we have talked about, like him trying and failing to go through the massive amount of HP you are bringing into the game.
Look at the, turn your screen to the jabs. You'll see them throw. Hopefully it doesn't cause the route already, but they can just like half health a unit of crossbow riders very quickly. That's why I like the javelins more than the normal skirmishers.
If there were dark shards, they would have been the sort of the main priority of the salamanders, you think?
Yes. At that point, I basically would go in, I would probably hold back the majority of my infantry, go and do as much damage as you can to the Dark Shards, because they have slightly less range than the Ancient Sallies. Yeah, the Ancient Sallies really carried that game.
Yeah.
As far as value goes. On both of them, I double checked. They are 1050.
Okay. So,
The
oh,
two units I didn't bring were the
the
Rev Crystal, which is just a good unit, and then the ROR Razordon, which is phenomenal at taking out dragons or any kind of large flying unit. You throw a Tempest on it, have that unit summoned in, and you can pretty much 100 to 0 most lords in the span of a single Overcast Tempest.
yeah, because I can see the sort of logic of everything in this army. Because I mean, red crested skinks are sort of excellent armor piercing infantry, which is quick.
Oh,
All
I
of
lied.
this
I did not
stuff,
have the cohort of
you see,
Sotek. My bad.
I can always see them if
You're
they're
right.
around. Like I have less, like my eye has been trained to hate them so fast that you know, all of this
All right, go
stuff
ahead.
is to like ward off the cavalry, light cavalry of Dark Elves, which is very good. This, this, and this is all for the lords, basically, or you know, scary flyers plus the incidental healing. The one thing I don't understand is the crystal, the revivification crystal. Uh,
So
isn't it super risky against like the AP crossbow, cold one night, everything's gonna die faction?
yeah, absolutely. It was more a on the off chance that they're doing mass infantry as the main build. This is I like it in the kind of the late mid game as another terror piece. If they're doing something where I needed to have like I don't know, I need to constantly have three of the Cold One Spear Riders on the field. It's going to be hard unless you have some healing in combination with your Slaan's healing. So the line of logic is okay. This is a good unit overall that even if it doesn't do a ton of damage, if it can get all 7 of its heal charges off, it generally is going to just pay for itself right off of that. So it's it is risky and it's not going to be brought in most matchups, but it's a good hedge in case they have a slightly grindier army than I do. Because, if they brought, let's say, instead of the Scourge Runner chariots, they had more you know more skirmish infantry or more crossbows, and it came down to a bit more of a grind where my skinks weren't going to hold up at the end. Or if they had, like, let's say, a Medusa, which is really good at thinning Saurus lines, then that's where you can kind of bring out the Rev Crystal and have it do work.
What if he had a Medusa? Like the would the salamander still like would the game plan not change? Because
The game,
you're like you will both be shooting at each other's infantry until you run out of ammo. Like what's the plan there?
yeah, I hate Medusas as lizards. They're
We
a
all
pain in
do.
the ass. Yeah, so it's really hard. That's actually one of the harder units for Lizardmen to deal with. That kind of is where I could have also summoned out the ROR um, Razordons
This one?
as a
Oh, okay,
potential
this one. Okay.
solution. And then it kind of becomes a game of you kind of hold back and just shoot at their infantry as long as possible and try to let their Medusa not shoot anything of value. You can throw a sacrificial skink in there to just kind of have like a skink with jab that constantly tries to push up the Medusa and zone it. It's gonna die. You really kind of have to just throw shit at it until it eventually loses its usefulness. But you want to present as uh, low value targets as possible.
I
As
see.
far as like what solution Blizzards could have, I guess if you had a solar engine or a Stegadon, but like those are not good units into the rest of the Dark Elf roster, so I
Yeah.
don't really recommend them there.
Is this last question? Are these two armies something that you would say are relatively meta for this matchup, or as one of you sort of experimented more than the other? Because I have absolutely no clue about Dark Elves at all. But logically, I can see your army being sort of, again, aside from the Rev Crystal, very solid in most Dark Elves. Like this seems like a meta army to my dumb brain. Like I would start with something like this if I had to build versus Dark Elves.
I think the Fire Slan might be a bit more common of a pick, but for the most part, the double Ancient Sally, or at least a single Ancient Sally, is super meta into Dark Elves. As far as the Dark Elf build, I don't know either because I'm not a Dark Elf player. I know Trust Me is a great player, really good. Someone did mention that this was an inefficient Dark Elf army, but I can't. It looks pretty standard to me for the most part. I'd say the only thing would be maybe in their starter army, having the Scourge Runner chariots isn't super meta nowadays. Um, but I mean, if there is a matchup to bring up, Lizards are probably one of the best matchups I feel like for Scourge Runners. Maybe their hero having Pendulum was the only other
Yeah, he had
not meta
Pendulum,
thing.
which I noticed, and I wasn't exactly sure why. But,
I think he missed one Pendulum and just switched to doing
Malkoth everywhere.
Melkoth the rest of the game. And Melkoth's caster is super common. I think that not Malekith, this demon guy, Zarkan, is probably the most meta lord into Dark Elves or into Lizards. I mean, got a 3,000 value, really good unit. I think he's better than any of the Flying Lords just because I do bring Tempest constantly, and I think that is the best anti-elf tech that you can have. Knowing, kind of like, I'd say if you were a meta Dark Elf player, not expecting the Lizard to play into your flying, then Malice is not the meta choice. But if you're trying to mind game your opponent and bring something that they have a lot less options into, then I think Malice is a great Lord.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, to round out this video, we have talked briefly about, well, not briefly, at a lot of length with Shaftsbury. This might be our longest guide yet. About the, what do the Lizardmen mean to you, basically? Why would someone be interested in Lizardmen and stuff like that? And from what I gathered, it's the extreme versatility, but with certain sort of high points that are always there that you can rely on, such as the extreme resilience in the late game, but that allows you to go a little bit into Master Mash, a little bit into Skirmish, and you won't be the best at any of those, except perhaps Monster Mash, but you will still be among the best, like top 5.
I think you nailed it right there. The extreme versatility. I think that in I'd say Empire and maybe Chorfs are tied with Lizards as the best combined arm faction. The one that can really make your infantry, your cav, your monsters, all of it work well together. So I think that's kind of one of their biggest advantages. And then the resilience factor, the HP, high HP per unit really is kind of a standard. High armor is a standard. And in general, all of your monsters are going to have AP. So lizards are very good at dealing with what a lot of factions struggle with. Like I know as a dwarf player,
Mm,
people are like, it's an armor check thing. If
yeah.
you want to play lizards, you really never have to worry about a faction armor checking you because you have red crested skinks, you have tons of dinosaurs, you have ancient sallies, you have riperdactyls. I mean, really anything. And you also, to add on to what else you said, you have some of the best lores of magic because Slans have amazing lore. Mazdamundi has an incredible mixed lore. You just have good units overall. And if you want to go with one of the melee lords, you have one of the cheapest casters in the fact that skink
Mm-hmm.
casters can be brought for about 350. So you
Yes.
just extreme versatility, really dynamic faction, and you pretty much have an answer to everything. You're never going to win with archers or like artillery. In that category, lizards are bad at. But like I kind of it's weird if you think of them as like a D&D class. I think of lizards kind of as like a paladin kind of style where it's like frontline, tanky, can do a lot of damage, a lot of versatility, utility in what they can bring, but they're never going to be like the sniper.
Makes sense. Before we set everyone free, if you don't have any final questions, I have been told that this is the most important part that we have sort of
Oh,
neglected.
yes. Oh god, thank
I
goodness
mean,
because the color review is the best part. Spirit of the Jungle is top tier. Uh
wait.
K-pop Spawn top tier.
Spirit of the Tepok Spawn. Okay. I mean, I'm seeing.
Wardens of the Living Pool, and then Children of the Old Ones. If you're fighting an opponent that's bringing one of the banners that matches, you can do the yellow and blue one Flatan or
Zlatan.
yeah, but like lizards, great. If you bring the basic, uh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's dumb. I'm sorry.
that's yeah, you're a bad lizard player.
Yeah.
You deserve to lose. You got to go at least last defenders at the very minimum.
Yeah,
Never
Last
bring the basic
Defenders
one.
is substantially better. Like look at the
Yeah.
yeah, makes sense. Thank you very much for this. You know, we need to rise up. You know, to increase the level of these videos, and that's the one thing we were missing. Oh, by
Yeah,
the way,
truly.
we'll do really quickly what we have done before. So basically, dwarves. The best banners are Barak Var, obviously because it's purple,
Mm.
and the Karak Zorn and Greybeard's Prospector. There is no
I like
MD
the
of
blue and white one.
the blue
That
and
the
white one.
Karak,
The
Draka or Drak.
the shade of the teal is kind of wimpy on the shields, but I think it's the sheen of the metal that kind of doesn't work that well.
Classic dwarves half-assing it.
Yeah, I mean, you need to have like strong primary colors, otherwise that doesn't work well because of you have all the steel. So then we have Chaos Dwarfs. Chaos Dwarfs is obviously the Warhost of Zar, but don't underestimate Servants of the Conclave. I know it looks dumb because it looks like poo color, but it looks more like a brass.
Overlords are the best.
Correct. Then what did we have? We have Kislev, which we have. I think like we both agree that Ursun Revivalist is S tier.
Yep.
And then I like Druzina Enclave, you like Rolfsman Clan, which are very similar.
Yep.
So I guess
Yeah,
know,
both are good ones.
both are good. Um, if you play Great Orthodoxy, you are colorblind, so don't. What did we have then? We have. Are we done? Did we do something else? No, we haven't. Oh wow, there's so much to do.
Yeah, we gotta get to more of the banners.
Yeah, it's best not to think about it. Okay, well, thank you very much, Bob. We'll see everyone else in the next video.
See you guys. Thanks for having me.